Today we will discuss do-while statement. It is a conditional control statement used to execute a set of instructions for a repeated number of times. Okay, it is a post-test loop, we say, because it checks the condition after it executes the statements. Okay, it is an iterative statement because it repetitively executes a set of instructions until the condition is false. Okay, so if you look at the syntax, first initialization, which is optional, of course. Do, then open brace. You can have some set of instructions inside. This is also optional. Increment or decrement. Close the loop, and while here, after you close the loop, then here test condition. This is must. Okay. Then you put a semicolon here. You don't put a semicolon for any of the conditional statement, but for do while you will terminate it with a semicolon here. Okay, and then you will have some sort of next statements. So if you look at the syntax, okay, fine, it is very similar to that of while, but then there is a change here. You can see in while, this is the syntax of while. Okay, initialization, while, testing condition, then you have some set of statement, increment, decrement, then you will have next statements followed by, right? So the execution of this while statement, how does it happen? First initialization, then the condition is going to be tested. Okay, and if the condition is true, then while block is going to be executed. Okay, while block is going to, then increment, decrement, then again go for testing the condition, right? Testing condition, while block, increment, decrement, again come back to test the condition. So this way you will be in a loop until the condition is false. When the condition is false, you come on to the next statement, right? This is how the execution of while takes place. But when you come to do while here, okay, you can see that initialization is of course before, then you have do. It means the control will be allowed inside. You can straight away execute the do while block and then increment, decrement. Okay, then you will have a testing condition here. It means the condition being tested is after the execution. And it means you are testing the condition after you execute the block. So that's how we say it is a post-test loop, right? We said it is post because after you execute, post means after, right? So after you execute the block, you will be testing the condition here, right? And if the condition is true again, what happens? The control will be allowed inside this do while block, and then increment, decrement will be done. Then again condition will be tested. If the condition is false, then it comes on to the next statement. Fine. So here what is happening, irrespective of the condition being checked and found to be true or false, the execution of do while block will happen at least once. Okay, because without checking the condition, you will be allowed to execute once. Only then you will be testing the condition. If the condition is found to be false, then you come on to the next step. So for the first time itself, if the condition has to be made false, but still you will be allowed to execute once. Okay, so this is the difference between while and do while. So while is a pre-test, you can say, because you are testing the condition first, then you execute the block in while. Whereas in do while, what happens? You execute, then you test. So that is how it is a post-test, right? So if you write the differences between while and do while, this is a pre-test, you can say, right? This is a post-test. Here what happens? First, the condition is checked, and then based on condition's truthness, block is executed. Whereas here, irrespective of the condition being tested, right? Irrespective of, I'll take the similar kind of definition first. It executes the block first, right? It executes the block, and then check the condition. Okay. So here the block will be executed at least once, right? The block is executed at least once. Here block is executed at least 0 times, right? Yes or no? Fine. This is the difference between the while and do while. You can then give the syntax if the question is asked, because this is one of the important question which is being asked in external. So if that is asked, you can give this definitions and probably these differences, and you can give the syntax and the explanation. Okay. Now coming to the execution of do while. How does the do while execution happens? If you see what is happening, first initialization, then do while block, increment, decrement, then the condition is tested. If the condition is true, again you will be allowed to go for do while block, right? So again you will be executing this and then check the condition. Again, if it is true, you will be allowed. But if it is false, you come on to the next step. This is how the execution takes place. So if you look at the syntax diagram, what is happening first? Initialization, right? Then what happens? You will execute the do while block straight away, right? Then what happens? Increment, decrement. Of course, these are optional. Initialization, increment, decrement. Fine, which were optional even in for while as well, right? Then what happens? The condition is going to be tested, right? Now, if the condition is, let us say, found to be true, then what happens? You will be allowed to go for do while block to execute next time. Okay, and this will be in a loop, right? So after executing do while block, you incrementing again, you test the condition. If it is again found to be true, you will be in a loop like this. How long? Until the condition is false. When the condition is false, you come on to the next statements, right? So this is the execution of the do while. Now let us work out one example which we have done using while, again using do while, and see the difference. Okay. Let us take this last example that we have done it using while, GCD of 2 numbers, right? In GCD of 2 numbers, if you can see here, what we have done is we have divided n2 with n1, then the remainder will be taken as a divisor for the next division, and the present divisor be taken as a dividend. Okay, and then you go for the operation until you get the remainder 0. When the remainder is 0, the divisor is the GCD, is what the logic behind. So we now try to execute this with the help of do while. Okay, and we'll see the difference. Okay, the question is GCD of two numbers. Fine. So here I'm writing the algorithm first. GCD using do while. Okay. Now begin. Let us take the variables n1, n2, and remainder. Okay. Then GCD. Okay. Let us take these variables and now read the inputs n1 and n2. Then here you can straight away go for do. So here you can now perform remainder equals to n2 mod n1. Okay. You can do n1 mod n2 also, however you want, but then the statement will be changed. Okay. So n2 mod n1 you have done. Let us take the example. You can take same example. You can change also, no issue. Values you can change, no issue. It works for all. N2 mod n1, right? 24 ones are 24, 12, 24, right? The remainder will be taken as divisor. Current divisor will be taken as dividend for the next division. 12 twos are 24, right? Until remainder 0. This is how you have to do it, right? Now, this was n2, this was n1. N2 mod n1 you have done, and you got this as the remainder. But this remainder has to be n1 for the next division. And the current n1 should go to n2. And remainder should be taken into n1. Okay. And you have to repeat this process, right? How long you have to repeat this process? Until remainder is not equal to 0. Okay. Then where do you get the result? You get the result in n2, right? Then print GCD. Okay. Then end the algorithm. You can brace, you can say the brace also. End of algorithm. See the change here. When I am writing the same using while, this statement I have repeated, if you can see. See, in order to check the condition, the condition where what we are checking, remainder not equal to 0. So in order to check remainder not equal to 0, remainder should have some value. For that you have to calculate and then get the value in remainder, right? So division operation must have to be done before while in order to have the value in remainder, which has to be checked at while. And for the next division to be carried out, this statement has to be again put inside the loop. So it means this statement I have repeated. This statement is there before while and after while. Okay. Number of instructions, if you see, reduced by 1 here in do while, because that remainder checking, I'll be doing it after execution. So inside the loop, if once I calculate remainder, that is enough for me. I need not to repeat this statement like how we have repeated it for while, before while and inside while. Okay, but here inside do while once it's done is fine. Okay, and that will be, since it is in the loop, that will be repeated. And this remainder which I am checking after the execution. So anyway, after I do this only, I get some remainder which I have to check that I am checking at the end. So no issue. So there by using do while, I could able to reduce one statement from while. So that way, if you see GCD of two numbers when I'm working with, probably do while is more efficient than while, rather, right? Because it is reducing one statement. When it reduces one statement, obviously it reduces the time also, right? So time is an important factor to measure the efficiency of an algorithm. See, if I am giving you an algorithm to write, the various ways of writing using various logics, of course, and various programming constructs as well. But then out of which, how I'm going to assess which one is the best is based on the certain parameter as I discussed before, space and time. Space is no more a criteria because you have a lot of space these days available. Fine. But still, if you're going for a very huge, complex programs, there probably space also will be taken into consideration. But otherwise, time is a more important criteria with the help of which I can probably judge the, efficiency. Fine. So in order to assess the efficiency, I'm using here time. So in case of time, if I'm using, then probably do while is going to perform better for me, rather, right? So, but then you can have seen there the result was being made available in N1. Now it is in N2 because we can just trace the algorithm and see. See, N1 is 24 and let us take N2 is 36. Now just trace the algorithm and see. So when you have read the values, you have read the values like this. And do means you will be allowed inside. Just go inside, that's it, right? Remainder equal to N2 mod N1. So what do you get in remainder? 12. So you got remainder value as 12, right? And N1 is placed in N2. What is N1? 24. So 24 goes to N2, right? And remainder is placed in N1. Remainder is 12. 12 placed in N1. Got it? And then you are checking remainder. Remainder 12 is not equal to 0. So you will be again allowed inside to go for the next iteration. There, what you are doing, N2 mod N1. What is N2 now? 24. What is N1 now? 12. N2 mod N1 means 24 by 12. The remainder that you get out of it is 0. Right? Now, what is it you're doing? You are assigning N1 to N2. N1 is 12, right? That you are assigning to N2. So N2 value is 12 now. Remainder is assigned to N1. What is remainder? Remainder has become 0 here, right? Remainder has become 0. That 0 you are assigning to N1. So N1 value is 0 now. Remainder not equal to 0 is false because remainder is 0. So you come out of the loop. Where the result is available in N2. So GCD equal to N2, print GCD you are saying, right? So you can see when I have executed it through while, I was getting the result in N1. Yes or no? Because the sequence was different, right? This I was doing it after I interchange, but in do while I'll be doing it before. That's the reason why the values are interchange, and you are getting the result when using while in N1, and when you are doing it using do while, you are getting it in N2, right? What's the point? So see, while and do while both are, of course, going to give us the same kind of result. That is being basically used to execute a set of instructions for a repeated number of times. But then in this case, you can see I am saying do while is better. Yes or no? Why? Why? Because
time.
Time. Yeah, I am reducing one instruction from while when I compare it, rather, right? So I hope this is clear to all. Okay, we'll go for execution. But before I go for execution, I want to give you another program here, which I want to combine in the same algorithm. Okay, write a program to find LCM and GCD of two numbers. For GCD, we have already written the algorithm, right? How do you find LCM? You must be knowing this formula. the product of two numbers is equal to the product of its LCM and GCD. Okay, so you can make use of this formula. Got it? So once if I find the GCD, I can find LCM. Yes or no? I found GCD anyway through this algorithm. When I have found the GCD, then probably I can find LCM also. How can I find the LCM? LCM equal to N1 into N2 by GCD. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But then in order to find LCM, I need to have those two numbers as well available after I found the GCD. Here what is happening, N1 and N2 are being reduced, and they will be reduced and they will be changed from its original value. Okay, they don't retain with the original value. In order to have the original values to be available after I found the GCD, I will be taking two temporary variables here, T1 comma T2. So immediately after I read this N1 N2, okay, I can assign this N1 to T1 and N1 N2 to T2. Okay, then what happens when I come out of this? Okay, I will be finding the original values being retained in T1 and T2. So in order to find the LCM, I can make use of this T1 and T2, right? So how can I find LCM? LCM equal to T1 into T2 by GCD. Then print LCM. Okay. Then you can end the algorithm. Okay. So I hope this is clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I need to take LCM also another variable here. So I can probably take LCM as a variable here, right? While being declared. So we'll try to work out the same example with our online compiler here. Go to my projects and can change the existing program which I've done before using GCD recursion. GCD while is there, no? I am just opening this GCD while which we have done before. Now I want to combine it with LCM and implement the same with using do while. Okay. Anyway, I have taken here T1, T2. You can see to take the backup of the original numbers N1 and N2. Okay. N1 and N2 are the numbers. GCD is to find the GCD. LCM is to find the LCM. Remainder we are getting in REM. So we are first accepting two numbers here. Then we are assigning N1 to T1. After immediately we have read the values into N1 and N2. We are taking its backup in T1 and T2. And here we are adding all the possibilities. Like if one of the number is 0, then obviously the result is non-zero. Fine. But if both are zeros, then obviously 0. Fine. That we are checking here. If N1 equal to 0, GCD will be N2. And any one of them is 0. LCM is always what? LCM is always 0. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
0. So here I can add LCM as well. Now I have to find the LCM. So since if I have more than one statement, I need to go with braces. So here LCM will be what? 0. If you want to write it both together also, you can do that. But then is separately also you can write, no issue. LCM equal to 0. See, when N1 is 0, it means N2 may be 0 or may not be 0. So if it is a non-zero, then GCD is that non-zero value, or it is 0, then GCD also will be 0. But in any case, LCM will be 0. If either N1 or N2 is 0, LCM is obviously 0. So we are taking LCM as 0. And let us say if N2 equal to 0, okay, if N2 equal to 0, even in that case LCM is 0. LCM equal to 0 here. Got it? Now, when these two conditions are false, when these two conditions are false, when both the values are non-zeros, okay, n1 and n2 both are non-zeros, then these conditions are false. Then we come to the else part, and then we are going to work, right, our logic. So I can simply cut this, it's not required here. Here, this while I will be having here, and I just say here do, okay, just say do, then these two statements, I'm removing it. See, what is that I have to do after I perform this? Just go to the algorithm and see. Okay, remainder equal to n2 mod n1, then n2 equal to n1, right? n1 equal to REM. n2 equal to n1. n1 equal to REM. Yes? Okay, then the result will be available in n2 here, right? So GCD equal to %d here, and LCM equal to %d of these two numbers, right? Okay, so what is that I have to print here? GCD, LCM. Then here in the else part, after I calculate GCD, I need to calculate what? LCM. How do I calculate LCM?
N1
LCM
into
equal
N2
T1 into T2 by
T1, yeah, T1 into T2. Original numbers are available in T1 and T2. So T1 into T2 by GCD, right? Okay, then when I come out of this else block, I find GCD in GCD, LCM in LCM. The GCD equal to %d. In place of this %d, I get the GCD value. LCM equal to %d. In place of this, LCM value will be displayed. Then of two numbers, T1 and T2 are the numbers, right? Fine. So now my program is complete. So just let me again go through and explain you once. So what is that we are doing here? To find LCM and GCD of two numbers, we have taken two numbers n1 and n2, GCD, LCM to obtain the GCD of the two numbers and LCM respectively. Then we are taking REM as a variable to hold the remainder, T1 and T2 to take the backup of the original numbers, right? First we have accepted the numbers, and then immediately after we have accepted, we have put them in the backups T1 and T2 here. Then is the size is large? Yes. Yeah. So if n1 equal to 0, if n1 equal to 0, n2 will be your GCD and LCM is 0. If n2 equal to 0, GCD will be n1 and LCM is 0. But if both of them are false, right, then it goes to the else part. Okay. When you're going to enter into else part, when both of them are false, it means when the numbers are non-zero. When the numbers are non-zeros, now we are going to apply the logic. So here we have the do while. You can see we are first dividing n2 with n1 and obtaining the remainder out of it, putting in REM. Then taking the current divisor value to be the dividend, and the current remainder to be the divisor for the next division, and then checking remainder is not equal to 0. If remainder is not equal to 0, again you repeat this. How long? Until remainder equal to 0. When remainder is 0, the result is available in N2 that you are taking in JCD, and now you are calculating LCM. So the formula we are using here to calculate the LCM is by going through the axiom. By going through the axiom, what is the axiom? Product of two numbers is equal to the product of its LCM and GCD. Hence, LCM equal to the product of two numbers by GCD. So that you have done it, and then you are printing the values of the same. Okay. So now let us save this again. This is saved. Okay. Now let us execute this. Language is chosen as C. Now you can simply execute it. So it is asking for two numbers here. You can give two numbers here. We can check with all three possibilities. One of them is 0, and both of them are 0, and both of them are non-zeros. First, we go with non-zeros here. 24 and 36. Okay. Result is GCD is 12 and LCM is 72 of 24 and 36 numbers. Okay. Similarly, we'll now check with some exceptions, giving 0 and 24. If I am giving one value is 0, another value is 24, GCD is non-zero, that is 24. LCM will be 0, that's it, right? And now I'll give N2 as 0. N2 as 0. If I give 12 as N1 and N2 as 0, then GCD is 12, LCM will be 0. Okay. And now give both the values as zeros. So if I give both the values as zeros, you will find 0, right? I hope this is clear to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So do while is only a change in execution. Otherwise, it is similar to while, right? What it does, it executes the block, then it checks the condition. Okay, that's the reason why we say it is a post-test loop, right? Whereas in while, what happens? First you check the condition, then you execute. Okay, that is the only difference. Fine. So now take some examples and work out with these as your assignments. Write a program to this one, generate Fibonacci series sum of digits of a number reverse of digits of a number okay, perfect number. I'll take prime number. Prime number using do while. Okay, so here I want you to execute this program. These logics are already available with you. You have already implemented it using for, and I want you to do it again using do while and then see the difference. Okay. Now let us check with the sum of digits of a number using while. I'll show you. Okay. using one. As I said, initialization and increment decrement are optional, but testing condition must have to be there in while or do while. Similarly in for also, fine. Like for example, if I am working with sum of digits of a number, so we know that the logic we have checked before. How we were doing? We were dividing the number with 10, right, and getting the remainder out of it. Then that remainder was being added, right? Sum equal to sum plus REM. Then you are reducing the number. N by equal to 10 means it is nothing but n equal to n by 10 only, right? This is a shortcut operator. So by doing this, you are able to reduce the number. Then you are repeating this, okay? You are repeating this. And how long you have to do it? Earlier, the example which we have worked with is with for, where we have taken another input called small n, wherein we were reading the number of digits. So we were first accepting the number of digits of the number. Then we were asking the user to enter the number with those many digits, and we were repeating it for those many times. Now I will overrule this small n. Okay, I will eliminate that small n, and I want only capital N. Okay, just I'll take the n. Capital N is enough for me. I'll repeat this process until n is not equal to 0. Okay, this way also I can implement it. Right, when I come out of the loop, I'll get the result in sum. Okay, I can print this sum. Sum will be my result. Yes or no? Despite the number could carry any number of digits, this will work. Fine. Let us take n is 5264, right? So what happens here? 5264 is not equal to 0 is true. You are allowed n mod 10. So in REM, you are getting what? 4. Last digit you get. Yes or no? Initially sum is 0 here. Yes or no? So sum equal to sum plus REM means 0 plus 4. Then n by equal to means 10 means n equal to n by 10. So the number will be reduced to 526. Again, you come here to check n not equal to 0. It is true. So you are again allowed inside n mod 10. 526 mod 10 will give you what? 6. Remainder is 6. Then sum equal to sum plus REM means 4 plus 6, right? 10 it will be. Then n equal to n by 10 means n will be further reduced to 52. Again, you will go for checking this condition. 52 not equal to 0 is true. 52 mod 10 will give you 2 here. Then sum equal to sum plus REM means plus 2 here. Okay, n by equal to 2 means n will be reduced to 5 now. Then again you check 5 not equal to 0 is true. So 5 mod 10. 5 mod 10 will give you what? 5 as the remainder. Sum equal to sum plus REM means it will be plus 5, right? Then n equal to n by 10 means n value gets 0 here. So when 0 not equal to 0 is false, you come out of the loop and you get the result in sum. Yes or no? So without having taken small n, where earlier we were taking small n to take the number of digits and capital N to accept the number with those many digits. And when we have implemented it using for, we were repeating this for n times. Now, without having taken this n, I can rather straight away go with n. Straight away go with n to check, right? Because at the end, n value will be anyway 0. So until n reaches 0, I can repeat this. Then small n is not required. Then obviously my number of instructions are going to be reduced. It means my program will be a little more efficient. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, this can be even implemented through for also. If I want this to be implemented through for, also I can do that, right? I say that initialization you have, right? Initially, you have sum equal to 0, and I can have without initialization. I can simply say nothing here and then semicolon. Then I can say n not equal to 0. Okay, and increment decrement, if I do not want, I can simply have nothing here, right? That is also fine. But as per the syntax, 2 semicolons must be there, and between the semicolons, condition must be checked, right? That must be there. Fine. If I do not have the condition checking also, then it becomes an infinite loop. Got it? See, for syntax is for followed by parenthesis, enclosed with 2 semicolons. Fine. If there are nothing inside this, then it becomes an infinite loop. This is infinite loop, right? All right. But if I have some condition, then until that condition falls, that statements are going to be repeated. So if I want the same to be written using for, I can write like this, okay? I can say that remainder equal to n mod 10, and then sum equal to sum plus rem. I'm giving you all possible options, how you can write and then further reduce the code, okay? Then I can have n equal to n by 10, right? N by 10. Then I'll get, when I come out of the loop in sum, right? The result. The result will be available in this. I can further reduce it. See, this remainder equal to n mod 10. And you have sum equal to sum plus rem, right? And here you can see there are certain statements which are to be repeated, are these three, out of which this n equal to n by 10 is nothing but something like a decrement of n only, right? So this I can put here, yes or no? N equal to n by 10, can I put here? Because increment or decrement also going to be repeated every time, right? So I can put here. It means I can reduce one more statement from the block if I write here. Got it? And another thing is sum equal to 0 to initialize before for has to be done only once, right? So initialization part also will be done only once. So instead of writing it before, I can write here it, yes or no. So I can further modify this for loop like this also. For sum equal to 0, which has to be done only for once. Then n not equal to
0.
N not equal to 0. Here n by equal to 10. N by equal to 10, n equal to n by 10, right? So inside this, what is that I have? I will have to get the remainder. Yes or no? Remainder, how do I get? With the help of n mod 10. Yes or no? I was taking in rem, then I was adding it to sum. I can overrule this rem. I can straight away bring this here rather, right? Get the remainder and they immediately added this statement itself, right? I can reduce it further. So what I can say, sum plus equal to, that's it, n mod 10. So what happens now, you can see. I'm, reducing the number of lines and number of statements. That's it. And since there is only one statement, I need not to have the braces also. See, I have compacted this code. This code is there from here till here. Yes or no? This entire code I have compacted to only 2 lines. This is very similar to this. This is very similar or equivalent to this. Sum equal to 0 has to be done only once. Sum equal to 0 is at the initialization I have given. This will be done only once. N not equal to 0 is going to be checked. Okay, N not equal to 0 is checked. Then here, this statement I have brought here, and these two have combined into single one. I said sum equal to sum. When you have the LHS and LHS of the binary operation and LHS, this is said to be the left operand. This is said to be the right operand for the operation plus. Yes or no? What is the operation you are performing here? Plus. For plus operation, this is the left operand. This is the right operand. This whole is nothing but the RHS, and this I say LHS, left hand side, right? Left side of the equal is said to be LHS. Right side of equal sign is said to be the RHS. When I have the LHS and the left operand of the operation both are same, I can use shortcut operators like this, plus equal to. What do you mean by this? Sum plus equal to means sum equal to sum plus, and then you have n mod 10, right? N mod 10 give you what? The remainder out of it, right? So the remainder is nothing but one digit. The digit will be accumulated with sum. It means I have a single statement now. I have combined these two statements into a single statement, and after this I have to do this. But anyway, I'll go here. n by equal to 10 means what? This is also again a shortcut operator, n equal to n by 10. When you have n equal to n by 10, it means when the left operand of the operation, binary operation, and the LHS both are equal, I can use shortcut operator like this, by equal to, n by equal to 10. Fine. So after doing this, it will come here anyway, right? So, and then it will check the condition. And then it does this, it comes here, check this, does this, come here, check this, does this, come here, until the condition is false. When condition is false, you come out of the loop, you will print the result. Result is available in sum, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Got it? So you can see I have compacted, I have reduced the number of instructions. This is how you increase the efficiency while writing the code. Because KLOC is a parameter based on which the cost of the project is going to be estimated. So the number of lines even are less, then the cost of the project is less. So in order to reduce the cost, what you can do, you can reduce the statements itself. Fine. So I hope you can now use this kind of notation and write. I am now again repeating that program. What is the program? Sum of digits of a number with for again. I am writing this without having taken another variable that is small. That is also one way of writing. Fine, but this is also another way of writing. I can write when using only a single n. I am able to reduce many of the statements, rather, right? Sum of digits. Okay. So here, what are the variables are required? Capital N, sum. That's it. Two variables are enough. It means REM is not at all required. Small n not required. So space is also reduced. When the number of variables reduced, obviously space is reduced. Number of statements reduced. The amount of time is reduced. It means automatically that has become more efficient, right? And then you will read n. That's it, right? Okay, then you go for this and print sum, that's it. This is my algorithm. The algorithm has been reduced or not? Number of statements are reduced, amount of space is reduced. So the same I wanted to do it with the help of while and do while. I can do it using while do while also, yes or no? So I want you to do it using while and do while as well. Okay, these programs with the help of this kind of specifications, okay, without having taken small n, okay. Without having taken small n, that is the number of digits. I want you to do these programs like this, okay. Okay, now coming to nested loops. Nested loops I have already explained you. There are certain programs we have already worked out on nested loops. Fine. Nested for we have seen, right? What do you mean by nested for within a?
For.
For. For within a for. What is nested while?
While within a while.
While within a while. Similarly, nested do while within a do while. Nested loops, if I say loop within a loop, it means this loop could be either for, while or do while, and this loop also could be either for, while, do while. It means I can have while within a for, yes or no? I can have do while within a while. I can have do while in a for. I can have intermittently any of these iterative statements within another iterative statements or loops rather, right? So it means you can use however you want. Okay, you can use if within a while also, while within a while within a for, while within a do while, or do while within a while, do while within a for within a do while. However you want, you can use it based on your logic. Wherever you want, however you want, you can use it. But you have to keep in mind that the syntax which is specified to these loops, you should follow it. Okay, that is what exactly you need to remember while using this. Okay. Now I am giving some assignment programs on nested. One we have done it before, like we have done one program, okay, to check whether the number is strong or not. How did we check the number is strong or not? By calculating the factorial, yes or no? Sum of factorial of digits of a number is equal to the number we said, yes or no? So to find the factorial, we had one for loop, and then to find the sum of this factorials of this digits, another for loop. For within a for, we have already used it, yes or no? Now I want you to do some programs here in today's lab. Write a program. Okay, first one, to generate prime numbers. Second one, to generate perfect numbers. To generate palindrome numbers. To generate Armstrong numbers. To generate strong numbers. Okay. See, earlier we have done it for one number to check whether it is a prime or not. Now you are asked to generate the prime numbers below n. Okay, you are taking one input n. Let us say, for example, n is 100. So within 100, what all prime numbers you have, you need to just print it. That's it. You have 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, right? These all you have to print it. It means you have to check the logic for all the numbers between 2 to n. Yes or no? And wherever you could able to find your logic being satisfied with that number, you will be printing. Otherwise, you are not printing it. It means prime number logic, which you have done it for one number, that logic you are going to test it for how many numbers? N numbers. So it means that logic you have to put in another loop. Got it? So for a number to check whether it is a prime or not, we have already used one loop for loop. But now we have to test this logic for n numbers. It means that has to be put in another for loop, order for loop, right? So I'll show you the first example. I want you to do the remaining examples today in the class, okay? So I'll show you here, write algorithm to generate prime numbers. All right. So here, what is a prime number logic actually? You are checking, right? Let us take J. J or I, you can take, no issue. Let us say J. 2 till n minus 1. So less than n, you said. J plus plus for all such numbers between 2 till n minus 1. You will be checking, yes or no? You will be checking that whether when you divide the number with all such numbers between 2 till n minus 1, you get a remainder 0. If you get a remainder 0, you had a flag variable actually, initially 0 before you enter into the logic, and you were changing the flag value, yes or no? And then I'll tell you the importance of break statement. I am giving you a break statement here. Basically, break is used to simply break the loop. Okay, so that it will not, allow you to go for the further iterations. When you know that further iterations are not required, you can simply break the loop. Fine. So the loop will be broken, and then you come out of the loop. Then you're going to check if flag is 0 only. It means it is written with 0. It means this condition was never true. See, when this condition was true only, then flag is changed. When this condition is never true, when you come out of the loop, flag is written with 0 itself. Then it is a prime number. So then you are going to print it, right? So you said you are going to print that number, right? Print that number. What is that number? N. Okay. So print N, you say, right? This is what the logic we have done it before. This is for one number, right? Yes or no? Print N. Now I have to generate for numbers between 1 to n. Then I'll be taking this whole logic in another for loop for I equal to 1 till n. Okay. Put this brace here. And then this n is nothing but all such I. Getting it? I have to test this logic for all such I. I is between 1 to n. Got it? So it means that, see, you better start with 2. Because anyway for 2 it doesn't work. Because 1 is not a prime number. So even if you take it, doesn't go inside and it immediately, print 1. So 1 is unknown whether it is a prime or not. See, 1 is, we generally exclude it from the category. We say it is a composite number, right? So I am starting it with 2 here. That's the reason why. 2 till n. Okay. So now my numbers that I am taking, for which I want to test this logic, I am taking in I. So I is carrying 2 till n. And for all such I, this logic is going to be repeated. So my number is I, right? My number is I. So instead of n, I should write what? I here. I mod j. So I mod j, I is my number. I is going to be divided with all such j, which are between 2 till I minus 1. And you find if 0 out of any division, then you change flag value. If you are getting the flag value 1 out of the loop, you don't print it. Okay, because it's not a prime number. But if it is a prime number, this condition will never be true. It means it will be written with 0 itself. So when you come out of the loop, you find 0, then you print it. So n is what here? I. So I am printing all such i's. That's it. What my point? This is my logic. So now if I have to write the algorithm, I just say algorithm generate prime number. Then open the brace. I can have some variables to be declared int small n, I and j and flag. That's it, right? And I terminate the algorithm. That's it. Because my result is being printed here. And this for loop also has to be terminated. Okay. So this for loop I am terminating here. Okay. Got it? This is my algorithm. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Now, yeah, we'll now try to execute the program. You can create a new project. So just tell me what are the variables we have taken there. Int I, comma j, comma small n. Yes or no? And flag. Okay. Then here you enter the number. Enough. You accept the number below which you want to generate the prime numbers. Ampersand small n and semicolon. Now the logic is for I equal to 2, I less than or equal to n, I plus plus. So here inside the auto for loop, first you are taking a flag to be initialized as 0. Then another for loop here to check the logic for all such I with the help of another iterator j. J starts with 2 and goes till up to I minus 1. So j less than I, okay, j plus plus. Now here you are going to first perform the operation for all such I division. Number is I, right? I mod for all such devices between 2 till I minus 1, which we have taken in j, I mod j equal to 0. If the remainder is 0, okay, then what do you say? You change the flag value to 1. And I'm here using break statement because when I find for any one of the division remainder is 0, I need not to carry the further divisions. For example, for 6 mod 2 remainder I've got 0. I need not to check for 3, 4, 5 and all, right? So I can stop immediately after I get the remainder is 0, confirming that it's not a prime number. So I will be using here breaks so that I need not to do the further checkings rather, right? Now I will be checking the flag value here. When I come out of the loop, if flag value is equal to 0, then I'm going to print, that's it, right? So print those numbers. So here I want to have some spaces in between. I can use offset percentage 5d if I give 4 spaces, 4d if I give 3 spaces rather, right? So here comma all such values that are available in I, for which I have tested the logic, right? So if flag equal to 0, only then it is prime. Okay, then I'll be printing, otherwise not prime, right? See, I am getting the end braces immediately, so I need not to have the end braces, of course, here. So this for this, if this one is a brace, and for this one is a brace, and for this for I have this. Okay, and okay, that's it. My logic is clear. See, it is very similar to that of the algorithm which I have discussed with you. You can see I've taken ni flag, I have accepted n, then for I equal to I less than equal to n, I plus plus, I am taking all such values for which I am to test the logic between 2 till n. Before I enter into the logic, I am checking, I am initializing flag value to 0. Then the logic actually is done like this. You divide the number is I. You divide the number with a set of values between 2 till I minus 1 that you are taking in j, so I mod j. If you find at any of the division remainder is 0, then you say it is not a prime. It is not a prime, so you are changing the flag value and immediately breaking. When you come out of the loop, in order to know that whether this condition was true once. So if this condition was never true, then probably you will be returned with 0. Only when it is never true, you say it is prime. So you will be printing it. That's how exactly here been implemented. You can see I've taken ijn flag, I've accepted n value, and between 2 till n I've taken I, for which I need to test the logic. This is my logic. Before I test the logic, the flag is 0. Now the logic carries to divide I, because I carries all such number for which I need to test the logic. Divide I with values, set of values between 2 till I minus 1. which I have taken in J. So I mod J. If any one of the time this condition is true, then we are changing the flag value to 1, so that when you come out of the loop, you will be knowing that whether you have been entered into this once. Fine. If you have not entered into this even once, then flag is written with 0 only when you say it is a prime number. So that prime number is going to simply print it. So you want to print some statement here, you can rather do that, saying that prime numbers below are prime numbers up to n. Okay, up to n. Right, so this is my program now here. Okay, so I hope this is clear to all of you. I'm saving the program first. I'm giving some name here, generate prime number, generate prime, I'm saying here. Now I will be selecting the language here, C, then execute the program. Let us say I want to generate the numbers below 25, okay? So it will print all such numbers below 25. But here you can see you are getting some values are being repeated because this statement is put inside the for loop, which has to be rather out of the first for loop, inside for loop. So I'll have to change the statements. I have to bring it outside the for loop. Otherwise, what is it is repeating it rather, right? Just go to the program where my problem is. I need to cut this out and then put here outside the for loop. Okay. Now again you save it and then execute and check. Okay, between 2 and 25. So you can see prime numbers up to 25 are 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and 23. Good. Yes. So this is how you can write the programs using nested for. Okay. Prime numbers up to 25, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 20. So I hope this is clear to all of you.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so here you can see this for is outer for and this is inner for. See, outer for every iteration of the outer for, inner for will be initiated and terminated. So for all such I values, this logic is going to be tested. Okay. So it means you can have for within a for, and inside this for I can have another for also. But what happens, the complexity gets increased. When you have more number of fors within fors, the complexity gets increased. Okay, then sometimes if your processor is not well enough to support, then it may get halted. For example, multiplication of matrices, we'll probably see when we come to matrices, we need 3 for loops, nesting of 3. Okay, for within a for within a for. Okay, so it happens to be n cube time complexity. So the time complexity gets polynomial, and if you go further like that, it becomes exponential. Fine. When you get exponential, then our computers, will not support. Okay. So the problems for which the complexity is very higher, which is more than polynomial exponential, we say those problems are said to be the non-deterministic problems, right? Even the prime number is also a non-deterministic problem, but with the help of an axiom, we have confined it to a deterministic one. Okay, we have confined it to a deterministic. As I said at the beginning, while I was giving you the definition of the prime number, what is the definition of prime number? The number which is divisible by one and itself only. So if I have to check and then ensure that it is not divisible by any other number, then how many numbers are there with which I need to check? It is infinite, because before 1 and between 1 and itself and after itself, it means it's almost infinite. But then I am confining it with the help of an axiom, saying that between 1 and itself, if I say the set, for that set, if I can satisfy, I say that it is satisfiable for the remaining as well. This is how generally in computer what we do for non-deterministic problems of this kind will be confined to deterministic problems, and their complexity will be brought into the polynomial and then can be executed. Till polynomial, it's fine. Time complexity, you can able to execute the programs with the computer, because computer is a finite machine. It is not infinite machine. It is a finite set of machines. Right? It will be able to execute only when you have certain limited number of operations. If the number of operations get increased exponential, then it cannot execute, right? It gets halted, right? It gets stuck. So many of the problems in the real world are non-deterministic. But for all such non-deterministic problem, what we do is, with the help of certain theorems and axioms, we will confine it to some deterministic one, and then we will be able to devise a logic for the same, and then we will be able to implement it. Okay. That is what I was discussing in the last class as well. See, when you probably take any case, for example, COVID case, if you take, see, one variant for which we are, our scientists have invented a vaccine, but it is not guarantee that after taking this vaccine, you will not be again affected with the COVID. Why? Because a new variant comes with mutations. See, mutations could be possible in the real world, right? So when a new variant comes, then probably this vaccine cannot work. Yes or no? So it means again it has to be modified, or rather it has to be updated with the new variant to be rather addressed with the same. And after even you take the updated one, but still if a new variant comes, then again an issue, you may not again be protected from that vaccine which you have taken. It means it's a kind of recurrent process, yes or no? But then you will limit it to some cases, and then you try to execute your program. That's how exactly in computers as well. Many of the real world problems are non-deterministic, but out of which you consider few typical cases, okay, and you confine it to a certain set of inputs, okay, and that is said to be the deterministic one, and for which you will provide the solution. That's how exactly a computer industry works. Initially, probably you may not have been born when Y2K problem actually came into being. Like earlier, what happens when the computer was just started in 1950s when it came into the commercial market. Actually, when it came into the commercial market, COBOL was one of the language that was being used for business application. So in COBOL, you can see there was specification in the program itself. You need to write the date of compilation, date of written, date of execution, date of modification. You need to write the date inside the program. So the programmer has to write the date. So earlier, the practice of writing the dates is something like, for example, 2021. What is the date today? 25 January 2021. But then how do they write? They used to write 23rd oblique 01 oblique say 21. They were not writing 2021, just 21, last two digits. When last two digits were written, like before 2000, what happened? It was written like 90 for 1998. They have written it as 98. Then came into 99. They write instead of 1999, they just writing it 99. But then when it comes to 2000, similar thing when approaches. What happens when you write the last two digit becomes 00. 00 means for 00 there was no data at all in computers. Fine. So then what happens? Because it was not started in 1900. It was started after 1950s. The computers came into the commercial market, if you see, only after 1950s, right? So 00 means it go there where you don't have data. It means this entire data will be simply lost, and that's how exactly happened. And in order to protect the data from being subjected to this kind of attack, Y2K solution was provided with lot of variants, and of course for which of course there was a very huge demand, and people without having the computer background as well, they were learning COBOL and all, and then they were they were working on this solution with different variants. That happened, but then the problem after being identified in the subsequent programming language, the date concept is removed. That's how it has been now again. So that you see, when you look at the problems can always, until they are identified. Okay, this problem is subject to this kind of severity. People will not fix a solution for it, rather, right? So until then, what you do, you confine it with some set, and then you work with the same. So generally, for all such kind of algorithms, you work with whatever the algorithms you work with. You only define the cases. You only define the set of inputs of what the user can give, and based on that, you devise the algorithm. And for that, you write the program, and then you instruct, and you may write a manual or guide or a documentation for the same program will be made available to the user, so that they can follow that guidelines while implementing that particular program. Even if you buy any electronic machine or electrical machine also, the inputs which you give has to be followed by as per the guidelines that are mentioned in the manual. If you do not follow, if you do however you like, what happens? That simply get blasted. Right? So that's how exactly the programming as well. So anyway, I hope I'm able to convey you properly what exactly I wanted to convey you. So we'll stop here. And now I want you to complete the assignments that I have given for today. What are the assignments for today which are given to you? These are all. To generate prime numbers, I've already done it. You also need to do it and then show us a perfect number, palindrome, Armstrong, and strong. You have to do it, right? And there are another set of assignment which I've given you is to generate Fibonacci series, sum of digits of a number, reverse of a digit of a prime number using do while without having taken small n. Okay, these two are your assignments. I hope this is clear to all of you. Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So here we'll stop now. For